I mean, look at it. It's just stupid. It's so damn, I don't know.
Richard, can you mute yourself, please? Thank you.
Well, they sound good.
They sound great. They sound great. Everyone, we're just waiting a few more moments so we can achieve quorum. So bear with us. Thank you.
While we do, folks who are at home, if you can let us know if our sound quality is any better than it has been in the past few meetings, please give us a thumbs up. I see one thumb up. Okay. I'm sorry. We got a attack this morning. It essentially needed a new wire. Yeah. But until we figure that out, I didn't want to spend all that money. Diana, did you get that email from me this afternoon? Oh, we got an extra 30 days on City of Yes. We don't have to vote until early February. Yep, so I had some ideas. A couple of folks here who board members who oh no, I'm sorry, actually 8, including me and Josh. You could still require a vote. Two items, one item before we get to it. Yeah, one. You get that.
Good evening, everyone. We have not achieved a quorum as of yet, but we are going to unofficially start the meeting and table voting items until we can establish a quorum. And if not, then we'll have some fun times next month. So I'd like to welcome everyone to the November General Board Meeting, Community Board 7. My name is Julio Peña III. I am the chair. Joining us virtually, we have several other board members, including our first vice chair, Cindy. Welcome back, Cindy. And Pat, our second vice chair, and filling in the hot seat today is Karen Rolnick, our secretary. So we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I'm actually going to start with elected officials' reports and presentations. So we're switching it up a little bit today. So I'd like to first call up, actually, let's do folks who are on Zoom. I think Manyak is on.
Yeah, I'm not sure if perhaps some are reps, if they can raise their hand.
Sure. If you are an elected official via Zoom, can you please raise your hand? Or representative? Okay, we'll start with Manyak.
Manyak, you can unmute.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me?
Yes,
Loud
we
and
can.
clear.
Perfect. Good evening, everyone. My name is Manyak Yu. I'm the Director of Policy with the Office of the Brooklyn Borough President, Antonio Reynoso. I have a couple of updates for everybody tonight. First, I'd like to start off by talking about the comprehensive plan for Brooklyn that BP Reynoso released last month. The plan, if you haven't seen it yet, includes a snapshot of conditions across the borough and lays out the borough president's vision for a healthier and more equitable borough. It is currently available on our website, and it will serve as a guiding document for the BP's decision-making that provides transparency and predictability to residents and serve as a model to the city for how we can better plan in New York City. We hope that you will find this plan helpful for your individual work as well as for your contributions here on the community board. And we anticipate that this plan can be utilized by community-based organizations, other elected offices, and of course, again, community boards alike. So again, you can take a look at the plan on our website, and I can send the link out to Julio and to Jeremy following this meeting so that it can be shared out with the rest of the community board if you don't already have access to it. The second piece that I would like to announce is community board applications. So community board applications actually open today, November 15th, and will close on February 19th. Applications are available on our website. Again, that's brooklynbp.nyc.gov. And all applications should take approximately 45 minutes to an hour to complete. So if you have anybody who is interested in filling any vacancies on the board, please encourage them to apply. All existing members with expiring terms will receive a notification informing them that their term is expiring and will have to reapply as well. Depending on whether or not you're in good standing, you will be asked to, you may be asked to attend an interview with us one more time. But members who do not reapply within this window will not be reappointed. So really important to make sure that you are checking your emails and submitting the application as appropriate. And if you know that your term is expiring and you don't receive an email from us for whatever reason, please do check in with Jeremy or Julio about the reappointment process. And that's it from me. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Manyak. John Blasco? Oh, yes. And Myra's here in person. Oh, yes.
Should we go to John now or?
Okay, thank you. So moving on to Zunera with Senator Chu's office.
Hello, everyone. Oh, I'm a little taller, just saying. Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Zunera Ahmed. I am the District Director for Senator Iwen Chu. Thank you so much for having me tonight. I just wanted to let you know that we have our office information cards in the back. There's in English, Spanish, and in Chinese. You'll be able to find our district office location, 6605 Port Hamilton Parkway, and also our contact information and some of the services we provide in our district office. I just wanted to also say that I have a few copies of the U.S. Constitution. You never know if you need a handy copy, so you can always take some if you'd like. You could also contact me if you want to take, if you're a teacher and you want it for your classroom, or if you want a large quantity, our office is more than happy to provide that. Senator Chu hosted a Halloween pumpkin and treat giveaway on Halloween Day, and it was just amazing to see so many children dressed up and participating safely on Port Hamilton Parkway, stopping by. I think we gave over 400 pumpkins and goodie bags to kids. So it was just a nice little Tuesday evening that we got to celebrate with the community. Senator Chu also participated and hosted various Veterans Day events, one at Port Hamilton Parkway with our elected officials. We also participated one at New Utrecht Library recently, and we hosted our own in Diker Heights as well. And it was great to see and have a moment to recognize our veterans, including one of our very own, Hector. So it was really great moment to appreciate his service and his sacrifice to our country, fighting for our freedom, our democracy, and fighting for our safety as well. Senator Chu attended today's ribbon cutting for the new Sunset Park Library, which is such an exciting moment. Not just a new library building, but also affordable housing. This is such a great mixture of meeting the needs of our community, giving teenagers a space, giving Brooklyn residents of all ages access to technology, access to information and knowledge. There's dedicated teen space. So it is just an amazing moment to celebrate. And I thank everyone that was a part of that celebration, but also the effort to bring that to our communities. This is one of the busiest locations for the Brooklyn Public Library. So the fact that we can renovate and upgrade and actually give a proper space to our community, it's a great moment to celebrate, and one that we need to recognize everybody's efforts in advocating for. At our office, we will be having a MetroCard van on November 30th. I have flyers in the back as well. So any services that you need, if you need to apply for a reduced fare, things of that sort, you can do that on site. You can also ask me any questions about that, and I'm happy to answer it. Again, that's November 30th from 3 a.m. to 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. I am not up that early. 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. outside of our district office, 6605 Fort Hamilton Parkway. And lastly, we are giving away leaf bags. So if you want to properly dispose any leaf, we love keeping our streets clean and our properties clean. We ask that you use these bags. We have them at our district office, so you could always contact me or stop by at 6605. I also brought a few bags here tonight. So if you want to take some home and start cleaning, that's always welcome. So I'll be here all meeting, taking notes and relaying them back to the senator. You can always grab my business card afterwards or ask me any questions. And thank you all again for having me. Good evening.
And next I'd like to call up Senator Gunardis. Right on time.
Good evening, everyone. I think this is not my first CB7 meeting, but it's my first one in person. So it's great to be here with you guys in person finally. Hope everyone is doing well. Great to be here with you all. Actually, I just left an event with Senator Chu, so I know she's out there on the other half of her district right now. Just want to share a couple of quick updates for you before we head back up to Albany in January. You know, December gets a little crazy with the schedule, so this might be my last chance I get to see you guys at a board meeting before I go back to Albany. A couple of things that'll be on our radar, things that we're working on right now. First and foremost is everyone's favorite topic. That, of course, is the Brooklyn Queens Expressway. I know we've had ongoing conversations. I know there was a meeting today about the BQE with CB7, working with the transportation department, trying to figure out what's going to happen to this highway. I know that there's a lot of disappointment about what DOT has brought to the table so far. As someone who represents 11 miles of this highway from the Verrazano Bridge up to Sand Street, I feel every piece of this very acutely, and the need for a really transformational vision for this highway corridor is paramount and is a priority for me as well. And it's not just about, it's about fixing the structural integrity of the highway where it's falling apart, but it's also about remediating all the harms caused by this highway everywhere else that it's touched, especially right here in this neighborhood. So the work is ongoing. It gets complicated. I know everyone hates to hear that because of the multiple jurisdictions that are involved with this highway. You have the city, you have the state. We're trying to get money from the federal government. And you can just imagine those levels of bureaucracy and the confusion it causes and the obstacles and roadblocks that get put up in our way. We have succeeded so far in getting the State Department of Transportation to come to the table in a somewhat serious way about their responsibility for their portions of the highway, which go from, you know, the Verrazano up to Atlantic Avenue, including all of the viaducts here in Gowanus, the Gowanus Expressway, I mean. So they have come to the table to discuss it. Some of their answers we don't like, but at least they're discussing with us, and that took a fight to get them to the table. We assembled a coalition with every single elected official, city and state, who represents the highway from Southern Brooklyn all the way up to the Kosciuszko Bridge, in advocating for the State Department of Transportation to come to the table and work with us and talk with us about this highway. They have agreed now to pursue a federal grant to study the future of this highway in the southern portion and in the northern portion, and to study the possibility of certain projects that would ameliorate the impact that the highway causes. This is an ongoing process. It'll take years, but we are focused on it. We are relentless on it, and we're going to stay in touch with you guys all, because I know there's a lot of concern in this community about what this highway has done and what it should be in the future, if not totally taken out. But that's just me editorializing. The big push when we go back to Albany in the new year, it looks like it's going to be forecasted right now to be a difficult budget year. You know, 3 months ago, they said we're facing a $9 billion shortfall. Now, last week, they said it's a $4.3 billion shortfall. I'm hoping that by January, they say it's $1 billion or it's flat. And then the budget's due in March, so maybe we'll even have a little bit extra to spend at that point. So a couple of things I'll be working on as it relates to the budget. Number one is expanding the child tax credit once again. Last year, we expanded the state child tax credit to 800,000 kids in this state who were previously ineligible. That's children under the age of 4 years old. We're not eligible for the state child tax credit. We expanded it. And that's an average of $330 back in the pockets of those families. That's for school supplies, food, clothing, God forbid a trip to the museum or the aquarium or wherever families want to go spend time together. So that'll be a big budget priority. Continuing our investments in the City University of New York, which over the last 4 years, we've increased funding several $100 million to support students, hire more teachers, hire more counselors for students, mental health counselors especially, and help address a lot of students' needs. 47% of CUNY students are food insecure, and about the same number are housing insecure. So really making sure that we can support the students who go to CUNY, which is the single greatest accelerator to the middle class in New York. And the third piece we're focusing on in the budget, it's both budgetary and non-budgetary. And that is, of course, dealing with our housing situation, the housing crisis, which is upon us. I too was at the library today. It's great that we can have 49 permanently affordable apartments. We need a lot more projects to bring 49 permanently affordable apartments to every corner of the state. We need a building boom of between 800,000 and 1 million apartments or units statewide. So we need to build a lot more housing. We need to keep people in their homes. We need to extend tenant protections for people in their homes right now. And we need to prevent homelessness. It has to be a comprehensive approach for all three. The governor put out a plan last year, didn't go through. I'm hopeful that this is the year we get our act together and do something meaningful on housing. And the last thing I'll say, my last thing I'll be focusing on in Albany next year is I proposed 2 new pieces of legislation meant to help protect kids' mental health from social media. The first is called the Safe for Kids Act, which would prohibit social media companies from using algorithms to predict what kids want to see, just to keep their eyes glued to the phone for 2 hours, 3 hours. I mean, we all do it. I do it myself too. We all get caught scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. And next thing you know, it's 4 a.m. and you haven't slept and you haven't blinked, because these apps are designed to addict you. And they addict you so they can sell more ads based on what you look at. It's a vicious, vicious cycle. It has led to a precipitous decline in mental health amongst youngsters. The rates of self-harm amongst young girls, the rates of suicidal ideation, admissions to hospitals amongst young girls in particular, have more than tripled in the last decade because of social media, the impact it's having on kids of all ages. So we want to ban these algorithms, and then we want to restrict these companies from collecting data on kids in the first place, because they have no business knowing what their favorite color is, who their favorite singer is, or what their favorite food is, because all they want that for is to sell it to advertisers to make money off of them. And it's causing great harms. So we announced this legislation a month ago with the governor and the attorney general. I'm very hopeful we have a chance of passing it next year. It's going to be one of my big pushes. And hopefully we can actually do something to protect these kids, because social media is not doing it on their own, and they're just trying to make money off of them. And so hopefully I can come back to you in the new year with some updates on that. I thank you all for your time. I think I exceeded my time limit, but because it's my first time, Julio will give me a pass. My staff is here at every meeting. At the ones that I can't make, Francesca from my staff is here as well. Lives right here in the neighborhood, a few blocks away. Anything you guys need, our office is down on Carroll Street between 3rd and 4th Avenues. But the easiest way to get a hold of us is via phone or email, because that's the way we know we can hear from you. And have a great Thanksgiving and happy holidays if I don't see you guys. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to call up, where did he go? Assembly Member Carroll? Oh, there you go.
Good evening, Community Board 7. It is wonderful to see you all in person. I think this is my first Community Board 7 meeting in person since 2020, and it's nice to be back. As you all know, I was a former Community Board 7 member, and this is a really important thing for our community to come together and be a place to hear a lot of ideas. I want to be quick because I know you have an important meeting. I have 2 community events coming up that I know some folks will be interested about. One on Thursday, November 30th, so that's the Thursday after Thanksgiving, we will have the MetroCard van, not in front of my office, which we usually have on 7th Avenue, but in front of the Windsor Terrace Library, which is on East 5th Street between Caton and Albemarle Road. So if you live in Windsor Terrace, or you know anybody who lives in Windsor Terrace or Kensington who's in need of that service, please feel free to point them in our direction. It's a great place, especially for folks who are seniors who are looking to either apply or refill their senior MetroCard. In that same vein, I know that there are some folks who have questions about Omni. They're going to be rolling out senior Omni cards as well that will be refillable, so that they won't have to also be connected directly to a credit card. I know that I see Joan giving the thumbs up. There have been a lot of questions about that. And for Park Slope residents, sticking with the MTA, it is imminent for the elevator at the 7th Avenue station to be open. I am told it is days, not weeks. And so that's really great because of activism from so many folks, families, older folks, folks with mobility issues. We were able to get an elevator at 7th Avenue. It took about 10 years, but it's there. hopefully we will be able to get a lot more elevators, not just on the F line, but on the R line and elsewhere. So folks who have issues can use our subways. Another meeting that we are hosting with DEP is a RAD Academy meeting. That's going to be at the Central Library at Grand Army Plaza. And that is from 5 to 7 p.m. on Monday, December 4th. If you know, especially in a lot of our walk-up buildings, there are issues with rats. Sometimes it's because there's garbage or overgrown growth around the sides of the building. Sometimes there's issues in basements. But DEP's got a lot of good ideas and good advice about how both homeowners, landlords, and tenants can mitigate rats. The biggest way to mitigate that is making sure that both tenants, homeowners, and restaurants are securing their trash. And the mayor, though I don't always agree with Mayor Adams, he is correct, and his commissioner of sanitation is correct, that using thick plastic bins that close when you put out are very, very helpful in mitigating rats. But that's all I have. I will leave these. If there are any pressing questions, happy to answer them, but don't want to. Yes, Joan.
We've been wanting, especially me, for decades now, to modernize the F train on Prospect Park West.
Yes.
And none of those staircases, I know they're not going to put an elevator. That's a given.
Yep.
But we have been, and even in our capital budget, we have a line to do something for the handicapped on going up and down those steps, because now what are they? They're about 30 steps if I recall.
Lights, right?
Yes. And we have, there's one, two, we have four entrances and exits, and not one of them is handicapped accessible in any way. So if you can, in however way, push a little for something to be done to accommodate the families, the strollers, the handicaps, and the disabled.
So look, I think that, and it's not just the 15th Street stop. I mean, so many of the stops along the R line where you have the narrow platforms, they're not conducive the way like 7th Avenue or Church Avenue, which are the big express stops that are conducive to putting a full elevator. That being said, most people don't live on an express stop. And so figuring out ways to make sure that these stations are accessible. Fort Hamilton Parkway is a little bit easier because there are ramps going up to one end so that there are less steps, and maybe there's a way to even make that even easier to navigate. But I'm happy. I know that every year the community board does a needs assessment about figuring out ways for the MTA to come up with practical retrofits for all stations, especially those that are not able to have elevators, because there's a number in the area. Smith and 9th Street, which I know is not in Community Board 7, but is right adjacent to it, is also another one that's a huge, huge issue if there's mobility issues.
That station, that station, the 15th
Yep.
station, that's over 100 years old.
Yeah.
And it has never been refurbished in over 100 years. I think.
Well, it looks pretty good for 100 years then.
Yes, but
no, I use the station regularly. I am highly familiar with
I am
15th Street.
following-
And, I think making sure that our infrastructure there, and it's frustrating that we had to work so hard to get 7th Avenue done. And if you don't live close to 7th Avenue, I understand that that's not a realistic option to say walk a mile in the other direction to use 7th Avenue, or walk a mile in the other direction to use Church Avenue. That's not fair. I understand that.
Thank you.
course. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Assembly Member. So we will move on to Edward Cerna from Councilmember Alexa Vilas's office. Changing it up.
For Councilmember Alexa Vilas. I'll start off with something I've been mentioning for the past couple of meetings, which is Intro 708, which, as we know, is a truck routes bill. Today, it got voted on, and so it's going to become law. So it's a huge victory for our community, for folks on the Transportation Committee, and pretty much every board member who's come to like DOT meetings to talk about like how saturated we have become with trucks, and now we're gonna be able to get the DOT to do a study and review these truck routes and update them, and they haven't been updated since the 70s, so this is a big win for the community for sure. I'll be very brief. There are just a couple of events that are coming up. This Sunday, we have the street co-naming of Andy Varela Way, Sunday, November 19th at 11 a.m. It'll be here on 47th Street and 4th Avenue. Originally, we were going to do it on this side of the avenue, but because of some construction, it'll just be moved across the street, and we'll move the sign once the construction comes down. But for those of you who don't know, Andy was a local business member. He gave back to the community to a lot of organizations. So we're really glad to be able to honor him in co-naming 47th Street. Monday, we'll have Puerto Rican Heritage celebration at City Hall and Council Chambers. We'll be celebrating Boricua contributions to hip hop. And one of your very own, Gladys Bruno, is going to be singing the national anthem, both US and Puerto Rico. So come on down. They will be having music, art, food. So it'll be an amazing event. And then lastly, insofar as like constituent trends, sometimes we speak about legislation, but I think it's important to talk about what we're seeing insofar as constituent trends, because your neighbors might be going through an issue. It's important for us to know. So something we've been seeing recently, and it's been increasing, is a lot of food stamp scams and EBT scams. Folks are, going to shop for food for their families and realizing that they don't have any funds in their EBT cards. And so our office has been helping to get those funds back. And so I'll leave some fact sheets outside that can help, inform people of what to do. But also, if you do come across a neighbor, again, point them to our office, because we relay that information to the city, sometimes to our committee of investigation, so they can do, a more thorough analysis and troubleshoot with the agencies to see if maybe something needs to change. And I think in this case, we might need to strengthen the protections on some of those cards. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you, everyone, and happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Edward. And we are also joined this evening by Congressmember Dan Goldman. Thank you for joining us, Congressmember.
Thank you, Julio. It's a little tough but that is you. And Jeremy, you're there as well. Katie, thank you for all your work advocating for so many of the critical issues of transportation and infrastructure. I know that my team, and I want to give a big shout out to Myra Molina, who is our liaison with CB7, has been working very closely with all of you on the BQE issues, and we're grateful for your engagement and leadership. It was great to meet with Julio and Jeremy. I actually don't remember when that was. All the days seem to be blending together. But recently, and we talked about some of the Third Avenue issues, some of the BQE South issues, and I know that you guys are going to be discussing with the community what your priorities are, so that I can advocate for them. I want to make sure that it's coming from the community, so that we're putting our best foot forward, and in getting the changes that you all deserve and that you want. This week there were a couple of good developments, separate and apart from the sheer chaos and dysfunction in Washington. We Congresswoman Velasquez and I had led 12 members of Congress from the New York, New Jersey region to the Army Corps of Engineers expressing concern that the Army Corps' plan to address the flood risk in the area post Superstorm Sandy was insufficient, and that it was not only the plan was insufficient, but the evaluation that they did was insufficient. And the DEC, the New York State Department of Energy Environmental Commission, issued an opinion today, or this week rather, that requires essentially the Army Corps to do exactly what we had asked in our letter. It wasn't required, our letter was a request, but because the DEC is a party to this, their request becomes binding on the Army Corps. So that work will continue and will be done, which I think will be a great importance to the community as we make sure that we not only protect against floods, but that we address some of the environmental justice issues that exist in the area. The other, we introduced 2 bills over the past couple of weeks that I think are steps in the right direction to address some of the immigration issues that our system is encountering and enduring. The first is a bipartisan bill that we colloquially call the Children's Court Act, which would create a separate court within the immigration court system designed solely for children, and especially unaccompanied minors, because all too often you have unaccompanied minors who come through a very complicated and difficult, complex immigration scheme and immigration system, and they're kind of left to fend for themselves. And this court would be really narrowly tailored with experts, social workers, judges who have a good understanding and sense of child's needs, and it will help not only make the process more fair for them, but avoid human trafficking, which often happens without the proper vetting and questioning of the unaccompanied minors. And it's something that would be within the same system, but really could be focused on children. And I'm excited that it's bipartisan, and hopefully whenever we do pass some sort of immigration bill, we can include that. The other bill that I introduced yesterday is called the Disarming Cartels Act, which would strengthen our enforcement against American-made guns flowing across the southern border into the hands of the Mexican drug cartels, who control the fentanyl trade, who control the human trafficking enterprises, and they do that with American-made guns. Mexico barely produces any guns, but they have hundreds of thousands of guns in Mexico that come from the US. And so this is an opportunity to disrupt the cartel's power and eliminate the flow of US-made guns across the border. We hear a lot from the Republicans about border security, open borders, all this stuff. We don't hear very much from them about the outflow of US-made guns to the cartels, which has such a significant impact on their power. So we'll continue to push on that and see if we can also include that in some of the border security legislation that's been popping around. I know I have to run to a flight soon, but I want to be able to take some questions. So I'll open it up for a few minutes if anyone has any questions.
Thank you, Congressmember. We do have one question from Katie Walsh.
I wanted to, my name is Katie Walsh. I wanted to ask if you could explain, you were only one of 22 Democrats across the country that joined a Republican-led vote to lead a censure, which is quite a serious effort. And I just want to have you, explain your vote to this board. Thank you.
Great, Katie. Thank you. And thank you for asking the question. Congresswoman Tlaib has been very outspoken since the outbreak of the war on October 7th, and has, in many ways, has every right to be outspoken. She has distributed and peddled false information in one instance, and did not retract it or correct it after she learned that it was false. And the information resulted in significant violence at U.S. embassies around the world, as well as in other countries. After that, I voted against an original resolution to censure her because the rationale behind that was outlandish and I thought inappropriate. I also I'll go step by step. She then released a video online, which accused President Biden of engaging in genocide and used the expression that free Palestine from the river to the sea. That expression, free Palestine from the river to the sea, has been used by Hamas to mean that from the river, which is the Jordan River, to the Mediterranean Sea, means that Israel should be eliminated and every Jewish person within Israel should also be eliminated. That is the common understanding of that expression. Certainly is the understanding that the Jewish community has of that expression. To me, it's a very not only anti-Semitic statement, but it is also a statement that can incite violence that we have seen around the country against Jews. I reached out to Congresswoman Tlaib directly after she had issued an explanation that to her that expression meant it was an aspirational statement of freedom for Palestinians. And I said to her, I understand, that's what you intended to believe, but as I'm sure you know, it is understood very differently by many people. And I think it would be really helpful if you could clarify that you did not mean to offend the Jewish community by making that statement, which anyone would understand, anyone in the Jewish community for sure and beyond would understand to be calling for the elimination of Israel and all Jews in Israel. And she refused even to issue that clarification. Congresswoman Tlaib has every right to say whatever she wants to say. This is, to me, it was not a First Amendment issue. She can say that. The problem I had is that members of Congress who have very large platforms and large megaphones cannot be making such hate speech that has the tendency not only to raise hate and increase hate, but also potentially to promote and incite violence. And I thought that in this particular case, it is that members of Congress should be very careful about the words that they use and make sure that we are not promoting hate speech. And I think that if someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene used the N-word, Democrats would be lining up to censure her. And in this particular case, I felt like this was an egregious and insulting anti-Semitic statement that she would not clarify or retract, and that because of the megaphone she has, it has fomented it has helped to foment, is not at all responsible for it entirely, but it has helped to foment a significant rise in anti-Semitism around the United States after October 7th. And so that was the rationale that I had to vote for that.
Thank you, Congressmember. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Moving on to Emmett Mendoza from Assemblymember Mateus' office. And then after.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Just a couple of updates from our end. So just on legislation, we're officially launching, or hopefully, we're just finalizing a couple of details. Save the date for November 28th for launching our Last Mile Clean Deliveries Act. It's a statewide coalition that seeks to amend the law around last mile deliveries, basically enabling the Department of Environmental Conservation to become a permitting process for new developers, as well as including existing last mile facilities, which will include a couple of environmental procedures, but also allowing for community input to be in place. We recently just amended it to also include a labor provision to include stewards in the process when these facilities be built, so that also union members have an opportunity to be engaged. And we're going to be joined by the Teamsters Coalition. It's going to likely take place in Red Hook, but if you're interested in getting involved in that, please reach out to me. I'll be here to share my contact information. Secondly, I have to share a couple of legislative updates that we're going to be prioritizing once we go back to Albany. My number one is just going to be housing. We're going to be pushing hard for the good cause eviction bill, which, if people are not familiar with, will enhance tenant protections for people who live in private homes, basically doing three things. One, it'll give tenants the right to a lease renewal for those who don't have a lease. Secondly, it'll protect tenants against arbitrary rent hikes, tying it with the consumer price index, as well as the ability for tenants to also be able to take the landlords to court if they're being evicted for unjust causes. Good causes would be, being late on rent, being the nuisance to not only the landlord, but also to your neighbors and to your neighbor and to the property as well. So for the good reasons, you can still be able to take your tenants to court, but for unnecessary reasons, they'll give a lot of protections to tenants who currently don't have it. For those who don't know, 14,000 households in Sunset Park are unregulated tenants. 10,000 are regulated which means they're either rent stabilized or they're rent controlled. So this will definitely help impact more than half the residents in this neighborhood. The other piece of legislation we're going to be focused on is called the Housing Access Voucher Program, which would be similar to like Section 8, but it'll be done on the state level, which will be for folks who are either in the shelter system or people on the brink of facing eviction. It'll be an opportunity for them to be able to stay in permanent affordable homes. On the energy side, in inclusion to our Clean Deliveries Act, we're going to continue working on the success of the Build Public Renewables Act. As we all know right now, a lot of the wind developers are starting to slowly back away from their power purchase agreements in other states. New York, we're kind of seeing something similar develop. So what the Build Public Renewable Act will empower the Public Authority of New York to step up and actually expedite and build more public energy, which would then help to balance not only the cost of utilities, but also be able to create more renewable energy that's democratically controlled and led by members of our communities. And then lastly, another area that we're going to be focused on next year will be around immigration, mostly trying to pass the unemployment bridge program that builds upon the success of the excluded workers program that our office was able to fight for back in 2021 when we won $2.1 billion on unemployment funds for undocumented immigrants. So those are just things that we're going to be focused on starting January 2023. If you guys are interested in looping in and getting involved in this fight and possibly going up to Albany, I'll be here as well. And just one community event that's coming up, as you all know, the Brooklyn Queens Expressway is going to have another info session. They're having two info sessions, but the most important ones for us here in Sunset Park is going to be on November 30th, I believe. It's gonna be, the location for it will be at 5602 6th Avenue. We're at the Weedy Catering Hall. If you would like that contact information, please let me know. It's an opportunity for you guys to be able to provide input. There's flyers outside as well. Any questions?
Jeremy Kaplan?
I was wondering if you could speak on, there's the Emergency Tenant Protection Act that got passed in Nyack and another upstate. Would you speak a little bit about sort of what that is? It seems like it's providing rent control or rent stabilization to those cities. Would you talk about sort of if there's more of a push in upstate cities to do that, and how is that those sort of tenant protections the same or different from good cause eviction? Because it seems like it's actually, is it rent stabilization for the whole town?
That's a really good question. I wish I was an upstate and I was an expert, but I could definitely circle back. I can definitely reach out to a couple of housing justice advocates that might be more involved in that.
Do you know if other upstate legislators or other people are working on sort of further cities? I think actually it was there was 4 other cities that last year passed it, and then it was overturned by the New York State Court. Do you know what's happening with those 4?
Yes, it's own litigation. I do believe you're talking about Albany, who recently just passed, not recently, but last year, the municipality was able to get some form of good cause eviction in place. And I believe there's a couple of others also in motion as well. My last memory is that it's being taken to court by Rebney, but I can definitely circle back and get more information on that for you.
Thank you, Emmett. So we can officially start our meeting and open, and I will turn to Jeremy for the roll call.
Good evening, everybody. I am going to call the roll. When I call your name, please acknowledge. If you are on Zoom, please remember to unmute, acknowledge your name, and then mute again. Let's start with Amel Afzal. Thank you. Grisel Amador. Damian Andrade. Thank you. Joan Body. Thank you. Gladys Bruno. Thank you. Glorinet Contras. Thank you. Jerry Chan.
Yeah.
Thank you. Esteban Chavez. Thank you. Richard Kodor.
Here.
Thank you. Richard, you don't count towards the quorum.
Okay.
Tina Das. John DeLupa. Thank you. Beatrice DeSapio. Beatrice DeSapio. Please remember to unmute. She just switched on her camera. B, you can give me a thumbs up. I'll acknowledge you. And there's her thumb. Thank you. Gabino Morales Escamilla. Thank you. Cynthia Felix. Thank you. John Fontillis. Kin Fung. Thank you. Cynthia Gonzalez. Thank you. Diana Gonzalez. Thank you. Hector Gonzalez. Thank you. Kenny Guan. Thank you. Nicole Huang. Thank you. Nicholas Jackson. Thank you. John Johnston. Jeremy Kaplan. Thank you. Beverly Kleiman. Thank you. Wyco. Barbara Lee. Thank you. Christina Lam.
I'm here.
Thank you. Angie Lau. Paul Mack.
Here.
Thank you. Antoinette Martinez.
Present.
Thank you. Marilyn Melman. Thank you. Rosie Moda. Jamie Nelson.
Yep, I'm here.
Thank you. Julio Pena III.
Here.
Thank you. Karen Rolnick. Thank you. Joanna Romero. Thank you. Patricia Ruiz.
Here.
Thank you. Damaris Santiago. Thank you. Sam Sierra. Thank you. Ryan Smith. Thank you. Kay Sorma. Victor Swinton. Thank you. Cindy Vanden Bosch.
Here.
Thank you. Catherine Walsh. Thank you. Cesar Zuniga. Roll has been called. We have a quorum.
Thank you. I'd like to move to adopt the agenda with one correction. To take out the elected officials report since that was done earlier. So it goes straight into from the second roll call to the chair's report. Is there, if there's any objection to adopting the agenda as amended? Seeing or hearing none, the agenda is so adopted. I'd like to move to adoption of the minutes of the October 18th, 2023 board meeting. So motioned by, oh my goodness. I saw 15 hands. Motion by Joan, seconded by Cynthia. If there is no objection to adopting the minutes unanimously, seeing or hearing none, the minutes have been adopted. Moving to public comment. This is for an item on the agenda for this evening. Members of the public, if you wish to speak, you may do so now. John? Santor? You have 3 minutes.
Folks, if you look at your camera, I am the 3-minute timer now.
Start my timer. Okay, thank you very much. I'm John Santor. I live on 46th Street. Thank you all for being here. I'm speaking about the Steiner Sequel Film Studio project. So I have a resolution. I'm not on the board, but I have a proposed resolution. I'm asking if anyone from the board would consider bringing it up and consider discussing it. The Steiner Sequel project is part of the overall Made in New York campus. That is a huge project. It started at about 300,000 square feet and $136 million. It grew to 1.5 million square feet, $323 million in public money. If you've heard me talk about this before, you know that I think that the record is very clear that this board and this community never had any significant input into the size and expense of that project. And I don't think that's okay. I don't think that's the way economic development should happen in this community. I think it contradicts the repeatedly stated preferences of this board. So that's one thing. There's a north and a south campus. I think they've both got significant issues regarding a lack of transparency, but the south campus, the largest project, is the Steiner Sequels Film Studio. Now, my personal feeling is that that project is not the best use of the space for various reasons, but that's just my opinion. My opinion isn't worth any more than anyone else's. What I'm asking this board to do is to take a position on that project. The Public Design Commission must approve that project before it moves forward. It's on the agenda, PDC agenda, December 11th. If PDC does not approve the project, it won't go forward. None of the local elected officials who represent this community, and this is very strange, none of them have taken a position on whether or not this project should move forward. All of the elected officials who spoke tonight and their staffs have not said if they believe that the Steiner Studios project, which is a 900,000 square foot project, should move forward. I think they should do so before December 11th. Also, this board, the last time it contacted the Public Design Commission was almost 2 years ago, January 2022. It sent a letter to PDC regarding this Steiner Studios. The letter expressed neutrality. So the board is on record to PDC as expressing neutrality. I'm sorry, 30 seconds. So the resolution asks the elected officials to take a position as soon as possible. I think the board deserves to hear that. I think the community deserves to hear that. And it asks CB7 to reconvene, at least in terms of the Economic Development and Parks Committee, before December 11th. So the board and the board members can say if they believe PDC should move forward with the project. I think the community should speak out and this board should speak out, because when it doesn't do so, it sends the message that the board can be ignored. And I think nobody wants to send that message. Thank you. I'll leave this draft resolution with the chair, if that's okay. Thank you for your time, everyone.
Thank you, John. Any other members of the public wishing to speak on an item on the agenda? Seeing none, we will move to committee reports. Housing Committee, this was tabled from the last board meeting. Antoinette, do you want to give us a brief synopsis? If you can.
Hi, yeah. So the Housing Committee had met over the summer to plan a number of community land trust workshops, but those have been tabled just because of various commitments from committee members in taking priority. We weren't able to move forward with that, but we are going to meet to push through with that. And I guess my second is not so much an update, but more so a question. The Housing Committee has been without a vice chair for quite a while, I think maybe going on a year. So it's just like an update from the executive committee on what are the thoughts or the official process of having a vice chair filled within the committee.
Sure. I know we tried to speak a couple of months ago regarding the vacancy, and I'm happy to discuss that with you in terms of candidates.
No, we haven't been. There hasn't been any conversation about that. And I'm not sure if there has to be like a public meeting to discuss that. I'm just not sure of the process.
No, committee chair and vice chair appointments are made by the chairperson, and I hoping to discuss that with you so that we can move forward with that. Any questions for the Housing Committee? Seeing or hearing none, thank you, Antoinette. Moving to the Transportation Committee, there is a vote required for the street renaming, not BQE 3rd Avenue. And I'll ask Katie. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Katie Walsh, Transportation Chair. John DeLuper is Vice Chair. We did have a vote, and what I want to just start off by saying, because I'm trying to look for him in the room. If Hector, there's Hector. Okay. So this is for a street co-naming for 24th Street between 4th and 5th Avenue. Hector lost his daughter, Ijara Gonzalez, and this street co-naming is in her memory. So at the Transportation Committee meeting that we had in early October, we, for folks that knew her neighbors, her friends, there was a presentation and letters of support. Her work on the 24th Street Festival, a petition that was signed by over 25 neighbors who live on that block. There were letters submitted of endorsement from the United Senior Center of Sunset Park and the Sunset Park Lions Club. And in that meeting, we voted by unanimous consent to support the street co-naming in her memory. So tonight, what we'd like to do, if I'm understanding how this would work, because it was voted on by unanimous consent, I can propose that we do that again in the context of the board meeting. Don't think I need a second.
No, if it came out of the committee.
Came out of the committee by unanimous consent. So I would like to, maybe before I do that motion, pause and just ask if there were any questions about this street co-naming request, about Ijara, or any of the other points on it. Okay, I'm not seeing any online. So then I will propose that we do this by unanimous consent.
Sure. Thank you, Katie, and thank you, Transportation Committee. If there is no objection to supporting the street renaming of 24th Street between 4th and 5th Avenue to Ijara Gonzalez. Seeing or hearing no objection, the motion is passed unanimously.
Thank you to everyone who supported that, and Hector as well. And I anticipate that we'll spend some time as a community doing that when we're able to unveil it. So thank you so much. I did just also want to take a moment on the mic to say that we did have, for those that were able to join, appreciate it, taking the time over many months of design. There were a couple different meetings last week on the BQE proposal for BQE South. We've heard a little bit about this. It's online. If you look in our minutes, you can link to the presentations that happened in real time and also online. And also 2 weeks before that, we had a proposal on 3rd Avenue. So there was also a 3rd Avenue design process to look at safety and accessibility concerns. So both of those are in front of Community Board 7, in front of our neighbors. When we have our next meeting for transportation on December 11th at 6:30, it has not gone out yet, but it will. We will be talking about those. So I would very much encourage you to come and also try and look at the proposals beforehand. What we are hearing so far, that's why it's really important for you to look through it, is frustration, disappointment, we already heard from some of the electeds that this is not, the proposals that came out don't reflect the scale of the problem and the problems that this community has faced and asked for solutions. And it falls short of that for both BQE South and 3rd Avenue. So it's really important that we hear from the community. And then the other point is, do take the flyers out front on the IBX proposal. So this is starts at the 65th Street rail lines and then is proposed to move through the community, and it's on November 30th at 6:30 in person at Whitty Hall. And go to Whitty Hall, right? It's a great neighborhood location. And really would ask if you guys can show up for that and also get others to go. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. So I am going to table the executive committee to the chair's report and move now to the joint meeting between Parks, Environment, and Economic Development and Waterfront. Presented by Victor. And Damaris. Or not.
Evening. We did have a joint meeting with the Economic Development and Small Business Committee along with Parks Committee yesterday. To the board members, I'm sorry I didn't get the minutes to you, but as I was trying to put this thing together, ran out of time, but I would definitely have it for you tomorrow. I'm going to talk about the parks part of it. Damaris, ready? We'll talk about the economic and development part, the small business part of it. We had the meeting yesterday, 6:45 we started. We had some speakers here. Doug Steiner and his staff was here from Steiner Studios. Jim Morris and some of the staff from New York Parks was here. And Tara Dash from Economic Development was here. We had one thing on the agenda. That was the presentation by Steiner Studio on their Steiner Sequel building and the park plans on Made in New York campus. Before we got into the presentation, we had Assembly Member Leslie Chang here. He was discussing illegal gambling in the community, in the Asian community. And he was just giving us information that he met with the district attorney's office and the police department to be more proactive in this endeavor and enforcement. They had some above ground, he said, gambling as well as below ground in basements. After that, Steiner Studio came up. They gave a PowerPoint presentation, which is on the table outside. Just want to give a little background when it comes to the Parks Department with Steiner Studio. Steiner Studio was selected by EDC. EDC, am I good? EDC to be the developers of new film and television project located on First Avenue between 43rd and 43rd Street, 51st Street. As part of the deal, EDC, as part of the deal with EDC, Steiner Studios was committed to building a playground at Bush Terminal Park. Steiner Studios wanted to hear from the community before they designed a plan for the playground. This meeting took place in front of the Parks Committee on January 28th, 2001. They came back yesterday with their phase 2, as they call it, dealing with the playground. And the plan includes adding more picnic tables, more lighting, more seating, better accessibility to all the features in the playground, ADA accessible picnic tables. It's going to be 2 playgrounds, ages 2 to 5 and 5 to 12, or I guess 6 to 12, which will have some ADA accessibility and companion seats, ADA companion seats. There will be more trees to provide shade in certain areas of the park, mainly the picnic area and the viewing lawn. It was definitely discussed that the trees are not planted in a spot where it is interfering with the view of the city line, and we was assured of that. There would be some new landscaping or rain gardens in Bush Terminal Park along the bike and walking path. In between the bike and walking path is Steiner Studios. They have 2 new pathways leading to the kind of top of the hill to allow more access for the people to get to the front to view the water, to the top to view the waterfront. They also will be donating $25,000 annually to the park for educational programs. Dealing with the entrances during this construction, there was some questions dealing with the south entrance. The entrance will be open while they are constructing the new one. And when the new one is finished, then they will shut down the one that's the existing one. It was also explained that the park will continue to be open and not impacted in any way during this construction. After the completion and the maintenance of the equipment in the park will be the responsibility of parks. And I'll leave that at that for the park side. And I'll turn it over to Damaris. I guess we'll take questions later.
Hello, everybody. We were here till 9 o'clock last night, so that's why you have no minutes. I apologize for that, but you'll get them shortly. I was joking yesterday was my initiation, my crash course. I wasn't here initially when it was discussed at this committee, but I did do a little bit of research. I've sat on other calls where I've learned about Steiner Studios. I'm familiar with Steiner Studios. So basically, I'm just going to take it where the community board left off with the letter that was sent on January 29th, which, it is a neutral letter. And the community board spoke about the things that they were happy about the building and what they supported, like structure, mural, landscaping, rain garden, solar panels. I don't know why I have megawatts in here, but you must have discussed it, that the idea of lighting and everything was going to be great. Now, the concerns, daily truck traffic, electric vehicles, signage, the World War II memorial, and jobs. And that's some of the stuff that we discussed yesterday. So they are going to be building, I think it's 5 new buildings, and they're going to restore the older building. And they're going to maintain the look of the area, Sunset Park, the whole waterfront for its history. That's one of the things that they said the community wanted, and they're respecting that wish. As far as opportunities for jobs, I'm rushing through this because you do have the presentation. You've discussed it before. And a lot of this, even if I go through bullet points and you were not here yesterday, which by the way, we didn't have quorum. So if you're in my committee and I don't know you, please come say hello to me so that I know who you are. And I know Amel spoke to me today. But one of the concerns was with jobs, and they did a pretty decent presentation. In other words, this meeting that they came back with, they pretty much came back to answer everything that we had put on that letter that we were concerned about. So they do have a collaboration with the Small Business Industrial Development Corp. And I think Jesse spoke yesterday about some of the collaborations, some of the people that are in the arts industry that they're working with. They talked about funding and supporting the Brooklyn Workforce Initiative, innovations. Then that helps train low-income New Yorkers for skills and job placement in the art industry and production. They talked about a summer internship program, which I was very interested in, and partnerships with local organizations. The local organizations that they've mentioned to have met with have included Sunset Park High School, Center for Family Life, OBT, and I believe they mentioned they were in contact with DOE. Working with community stakeholders, as they say in the presentation. For those of you that were listening in last night, one of the things that I mentioned is it sounds beautiful, it looks beautiful, and when it comes to workforce and training, we have all these bullet points of all these things that we want to hear, but we want to also see it, and we want to see those engagements. We want to see the public presentations, we want to see outreach to the community so that people in the community are aware that this is going to happen. Because we can talk about it here, but not everybody in the community that can benefit from this come to community board meetings, listen to community board meetings, we'll see this absolutely anywhere. So what's the sense of having it here between us if it's not spoken? And as far as community board members or anyone that's here, it's also good to talk about it. We Google everything else. Let's Google what's going on with Steiner Studios. Let's Google, like I just Googled Brooklyn Workforce Innovations because I wanted to know what they offer, what communities they're in, and how is it that Steiner Studios supporting them is going to help us as a community and that we can get what we're looking for from Steiner Studios. I think everything else is pretty much an illustration. They talked about permanent jobs, construction jobs. They were very clear that this does not include any union jobs. That has nothing to do with the union. The unions are completely separate. Film and TV production jobs. They did talk about the average pay, 90 plus. They talked about not having to have a high school degree and training programs and opportunities as such. Don't know if anybody has any questions on it.
Thank you, Damaris. So because the joint committee did not have quorum last night, if this board decides to move forward with a letter of support, it would need to be motioned from the floor and seconded. But before we get to that, are there any questions from the presentation? Jeremy Kaplan? Sorry for saying your government name. It's just two Jeremys.
I was wondering if Steiner Studio has mentioned at all why the increase in footprint and also the increase in expenses, and also the conversation I don't think has ever come up, but this is public land. If there's, I would assume in these buildings, we should have some community space or some, and I feel like that conversation has never happened with Steiner Studio. So that's why I echo back to what John has brought up and the idea that I do think we should have a more robust conversation as well, and possibly, and take up the resolution that he mentioned, asking, our elected officials to have more of a say. Because it does feel like the project got bigger and more expensive, and that conversation never sort of happened as to why and what, and sort of that Steiner just gets a blank check, and blank community space, which you would think on our waterfront we should be providing space where we have this as public space. These could be opportunities for people. I remember 2 years ago, I talked to them about community space for, local filmmakers, and I don't think none of that ever sort of transpired, or that conversation never went anywhere.
I will say that question was brought up last night about community space and community use. the response was that because of the nature of film and TV production, many of their clients value privacy. I don't want to use the word secrecy because that didn't feel right. But they value privacy in particularly for their productions. So having public access would pose a challenge for them. I believe that they also mentioned in not Bush Terminal, the North Camp. Wait, North Campus of. I was talking the
Made in New York.
Yeah, so that they did mention in their previous projects, they did have community use space, and it was a challenge managing that with some of their clients and vendors. Navy Yard, oh my goodness. I have lots of brain farts tonight. Yeah. And then in terms of your second question, I already forgot what the second question was. Oh, yeah. I don't believe they addressed that unless I missed it. But yeah.
I think in EDC did say that they had spent something like less than 20 million or something on this particular project, and that the rest of the money was going to the other part of the Made in New York campus, the northern part. It was under 20.
Any other questions? Oh, sorry. Before I get to Dan, Cindy Vandenbosch on Zoom.
Hi, guys. I'm hoping to be there next month, home with a newborn. But I have one question, and then I also just wanted to make a comment. But first, I also wanted to disclose that I have there is a conflict of interest. So if we do have a vote, I will recuse myself for that reason, and that's because through my work, we have through my work relationships with the New York City Economic Development Corporation, and have also contracted with Steiner before. So, but I do want to ask a question about the Naval Armed Guard Memorial and whether that came up in the conversation. I know that you mentioned that they were going to respect the history of the site, but whether they are going to do anything about the Naval Armed Guard Memorial, which is currently in a state of disrepair, right across from the Department of Sanitation space, and it's in a sad state. So that was something that was discussed at the previous meeting, and I'm sorry I couldn't be there last night, but curious to know how and if they actually responded to that specifically, as we had discussed, the possibility of maybe including some interpretive of ensuring that there would be sort of on a way for people to visit that, because right now you have to basically go where the garbage trucks go in order to see the memorial, and it's right sort of on the line close to one of the entrances to the park. So that's one thing. And then I just wanted to make a comment. I work at the Brooklyn Navy Yard and have seen the production assistance program that's operated out of there. It's Made in New York. It's a city-wide program, I believe, that's affiliated with the film industry. And it has been really cool to see the number of people of all ages actually that have been able to enter the film and television industry. It's a way to gain a foothold and work in that industry. I just wanted to say that it's been neat to watch that. And it's not operated by Steiner, I don't believe. I think it's some kind of partnership and a workforce development program. So I just wanted to share that insight about that particular part of what they presented. And I'm happy to see that there's a lot of accessibility built in, because that was part of the previous meeting that we had with Steiner. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Cindy. I feel like before I get to you, Dan, I feel like they did speak about the memorial, but Cindy, are you referring to the World War II memorial? That's
what it is. It's people who served in the Naval Armed Guard, and so it's a memorial that's across from, it's basically like you have to, there's no sidewalk to get there. You literally have to walk where the garbage trucks drive to get to it right now. And it's very close. It's like on the border with where they're going to be building out one of the entrances to the park. And so there was sort of some discussion of like, would it be possible to like incorporate it in some way, or at least acknowledge it? That was one of the things we had sort of discussed in that meeting, is whether or not should it be moved, or should we somehow try to make contact with people that erected the or have connections to the memorial. So I'm just wondering if it came up at all, and if it didn't, if we were to submit a letter of some sort, if we could ask that some of that due diligence be done, so that, and at the very least, I would want to see maintenance and some signage, because right now, unless you know what it is, you don't really know what it is when you get there. So yeah.
Thank you. Diana?
One, two, three.
Okay. So I noticed in the plans that there's plans for a new parking garage on the site. I wanted to ask what types of vehicles it's going to be able to accommodate. Presumably, we're going to be seeing a lot of large trailers bringing set supplies into the space. Was there any discussion of traffic impacts, or whether they would be parked on the street versus actually in the garage? That's my question.
One second. I don't believe they mentioned the type of vehicles for the parking garage, but that is a very important question.
I just say what I remember. They did talk about the electric vehicles, and we did ask, I think Katie had asked a question about trucking. He didn't have all the details, but he did say, you know, I think the question was regarding it was diesel. He was supposed to get back to us with how many trucks more or less, but he said he did provide that information in the first presentation.
Any other questions? Katie?
This is less than a comment. I don't think this board is okay. Well, in my opinion, I think there's more information that's required. I don't understand the sense of urgency. If you guys have from them indication of they're going in front of PDC on December 11th. But you know, did they give you indication of like they came to the board, they presented, do they need something from the board? Will they still go to the PDC on December 11th? I mean, you guys were here until 9. It was only last night. And we all just got the presentation like 3 hours ago. I just don't think it's enough time. And this is a very thoughtful group of people who really care and are invested in this community.
Before we address that part, I do want it to, is it Steiner Studios, is seeking a letter of support so that they can present for the December 11th PDC meeting. And then to your second portion, if I heard you correctly, you'd like to motion to table this to the December meeting. Did I hear you correctly? Okay. Is there a second to that motion? Seconded by Jerry Chan. Is there discussion on the motion on the floor, which is to table thank you, to table the vote to the December board meeting? John?
How does the PDC process work? Like if we table it, does that mean it doesn't go up, or does that mean it goes up at a later date?
That is a question I do not know the answer to. My assumption is that they will go to PDC regardless, and our vote would be advisory afterwards. Any other questions? Board members only, sorry. Damien?
I mean, I guess this is like to add to, could I add amendment to the resolution by any chance? Or like a friendly amendment?
To the motion on the
To the
floor?
motion on the floor. I guess the friendly amendment will be maybe sending a letter for support for the parks, but still table specifically the economic and Steiner Studios, maybe back to committee.
Okay, since the motion was introduced on the floor, Damien's amendment motion to, actually, sorry, I need to follow proper Robert's Rules of Order. That is a separate motion, and we have to address the first motion, which is to table, before we can move forward.
Katie, with your proposal, are you asking for time for the board to read over the stuff, or you think the committee should meet again with Steiner before our December meeting? Because if we don't meet before our December meeting, it's gonna take us into next year. I mean, it's just how, trying to understand, you want just time for the board to read over the stuff, or you want another meeting with the committees?
So where this is coming from is that we all just got the proposal from Steiner, sent out to the board 3 hours ago, and this is a big project. And so I don't think that we've had enough time to review it. I think that I'm hearing questions being raised about what will they do if we don't provide something. They came to this community board asking, keeps going out. They came to the community board to present. And my perspective is this would just be too rushed if we tried to take a vote on this right now. I just don't know that we're pretty thoughtful. Out of these two committees, in terms of committees.
I'm not arguing with you. I don't want you.
Right. So that's.
Want to understand, do you think we should bring it back to committee?
So
it's time for the board to review it.
Sorry, I just, the motion on the floor is to table this item to the December board meeting, and it was not a motion for the committee to meet again. So I do want to vote on this motion. The motion on the floor is to table a vote of letter of support for Steiner Studios and the park to the December board meeting. I would like to do this. Is there a question on the motion, Jeremy?
Point of clarity, because Steiner Studio was supposed to be putting this to the last monthly meeting, and so they didn't have to come to the community board, and then now they're coming, and so I'm confused because also last night apparently they did not ask for a letter of approval. So I'm not clear on the process here. It seemed like they were trying to get approval on Monday, and that somehow was pushed to the December meeting. And then now they're asking for a letter, which I don't think anybody was clear on, because, correct me if I'm wrong, last night they did not ask for a letter of approval at that meeting, right?
I'm sorry, Jeremy. They asked for a letter of support. They asked for it in writing when they submitted the presentation. They had also been asking to meet with the committee for quite some time. And I think that's why they had to push their meeting, because we didn't give them a date available before their meeting. So they had to postpone their meeting, I guess.
And then just in terms of procedure, they couldn't officially ask for a letter of support last night because it wasn't an official meeting, because quorum wasn't met.
So I will just reiterate that if they're asking for a letter of support, this is a very thoughtful group of people. We all just got this presentation. That's why I've proposed that this gets tabled.
So thank you, Katie. The motion on the floor is to table the vote for a letter of support until the December board meeting. I'd like to do this by a hand vote, board members only. If you support the motion to table to the December meeting, please raise your hand. Okay, hands down. If you do not support the motion to table to the December meeting, please raise your hand.
Leave your hands up, please. Until I call your name, Marilyn Melman. Karen Rolnick. Jeremy Kaplan. Nicholas Jets. Anybody else? Anybody?
No one on Zoom. Motion to table carries. This will be presented at the December board meeting. Thank you, everyone. And thank you to our committee chairs. So we will move on to the second roll call this evening for board members not present at the first roll call.
So I'm only going to call the people who were not here during the first roll call. When I call your name, please acknowledge. If you are at home, please unmute yourself, acknowledge your name, and then mute yourself again. Grisel Amador, Christina Das, John Fontillis, John Johnston, Waiko, Angie Lau, Rosie Moda, Kay Sorma, Cesar Zuniga. Roll is called.
Thank you. So moving on to the chair's report, I'm seeing a lot of folks exit. Senator Gunardis and a couple of other reps mentioned, today was the grand reopening of the Sunset Park Library, which I was very excited about, as was over 200 members of our community. Excuse me, I was present there with Jeremy, as well as Cynthia Felix. Hector Gonzalez was also present. It is very exciting that something that this board has been very supportive of has finally opened with 49 units of affordable, 100% affordable units above. So we hope to see more projects like that where it's earlier today. We had a meeting with some community-based organizations that have been, as well as some of our elected, probably, I believe, the third or fourth meeting we've had with this group of folks, really trying to get a tackle on how we can be more in line in how we address the corridor. As folks mentioned, remember, and as Katie mentioned earlier, DOT presented us with their first proposal for what they see under the BQE, and it left a lot to be desired. This board's goal is really to make sure that members of the community, members of this board, really have an understanding of what is being proposed, as well as being more aggressive in designing underneath the BQE. As Congressmember Dan Goldman mentioned, Jeremy and I met with the Congress member and his staff on November 3rd to talk about CB7 priorities. Transportation was number one on that list, as well as affordable housing and immigration reform. Look forward to meeting other elected officials and talking about our priorities. I'm gonna skip that. One thing, as this board has seen in the last, since the start of this board year, there have been a number of street renaming requests to this board. We have worked on finalizing a process that aligns with the council's role in terms of street renaming. So that is going to be made public in the next couple of weeks. It outlines essentially what is kind of unsaid, but we're formalizing the process so that it's more transparent and people know what the process is for street co-namings moving forward. So you can stay tuned for that. And lastly, I wanted to talk a little bit about the executive committee meeting this week. which we discussed meetings and quorum. We did come up with some great suggestions so that we can be more supportive to committees, as well as discussing challenges around quorum. For example, we weren't able to officially start this meeting until 7:25 p.m. today because we were waiting to met quorum. So we're really looking for ways to not make the board meetings and the process onerous, but also make it flexible so that people can participate and join, because New York State Open Meetings Law requires a quorum be met by those attending in person. We have expressed our dissatisfaction with that, but of course we need to comply with New York State law in order to convene official meetings. So that is it for my chair's report. Any questions? Diana?
At one point, should we expect to see the committee assignments and not just the leadership, but the full assignments?
That is forthcoming, hopefully by next week. Jerry?
Because of the situation, not a lot of people show up. Should we reduce the size of the committee members? Can we do that?
It is in discussion. So stay tuned to your emails. So moving on to the district manager's report.
We're in the home stretch, folks. So we missed 2020, so this is technically the 36th of the past 37 years. Community Board 7 is having its holiday toy drive. Flyers are out on the table. We are accepting new unwrapped toys for children and infants from, toys for children from infant to 18 years old. We are starting to collect on Monday, and we'll be collecting through December 20th, which is our next board meeting. Griselle Amador from United Senior Citizens, who are always our top gift giver, has told us that she didn't wait for us. They've started collecting gifts before we made this announcement. We could also use a hand in sorting toys. In the past couple of years, we have started with the children who are in our local homeless shelters. All our shelters we will do this year, of course, and then move on to other not-for-profits. Katie mentioned the Interborough Express meeting coming up, so I don't need to bring that up. The ribbon cutting, I don't need to bring up. The Sunset Park Christmas tree lighting is Friday, December 1st at 3 p.m. At 5th Avenue and 60th Street in front of OLPH. Sunset Park's third annual Day of Remembrance for road traffic victims is Sunday, this coming Sunday, the 19th at 4 p.m. They're meeting also at OLPH at 59th and 5th, and we'll be marching to 44th Street. The Brooklyn Center for the Independence of the Disabled has started a warm line, which is peer-to-peer support for disabled folks. That's going to be on Monday and Wednesdays from 3 to 7 p.m. The phone number is there's a flyer outside for anybody who's interested, but it's 929-548-0818. And they speak English and Spanish on the warm line. Last month, you voted to empower me to go over the fiscal year 25 capital and expense budget priorities, which I did. I was able to remove a couple of items. The reports are out on the table. There are two new capital items. The first is to complete delayed DOT projects district-wide, including raised sidewalk extensions, no parking signs in appropriate areas on 4th Avenue and the 58th Street Upland Connector, and also add bollards on 4th, 5th, and 8th Avenues to prevent vehicles from parking in crosswalks and to protect sheltered bike lanes from vehicle intrusion. On the expense side, we were able to add one, which is increase enforcement against illegal and double parking, unregistered vehicles, and traffic traffic violations throughout the district. Last week, I met with EDC, Green Economy Action Plan, which would lead to pilot programs at the Brooklyn Army Terminal. They are looking to make an upcoming presentation to the Economic Development and Small Business Committee. I believe they brought this up last night to Damaris to schedule a meeting in the forthcoming weeks. Liquor licenses, since last month, there have been 9 liquor licenses that have come in. There have been 2, and we received these today, 2 cannabis license that have come in, but one of the cannabis licenses from last month has been withdrawn. Finally, the police department statistics are out on the table outside.
Thank you, Jeremy. Any questions on the district manager's report? Seeing or hearing none. Moving on to old business. Ooh,
I have a question.
sorry. Thank
it's
you
okay.
for
I have
calling
my-
out, and I need to remember to share the screen.
I have my virtual hand raised. Yeah, so I have a few. One thing I want to commend Jeremy, Maria, Natasha for the hybrid meeting and the quality of this right now. I'm really amazed how far we've come. But I have a question first about the toy drive. So if anybody here or in the community wants to donate, they can just come to the community board during the hours during the week, Jeremy, to bring toys. Or where should they take them?
Technically, yes, but we prefer you call first. Technically,
Okay.
yes, but we prefer you call first, just to make sure that we can handle it at that time.
Okay, and same thing with sorting the toys if people want to get involved.
Stay tuned for that. Once we know what we have, it will be the last couple of days before we do distribution. We'll get
Okay.
you more info on that. But we're happy to hear if anybody wants to volunteer now. We just don't have the details.
Okay, great. And then one other question, which is about the website, and this relates to Jane Byrne, who left a comment in the chat earlier today asking about where the minutes were from the transportation meeting. And I'm just wondering, we do have minutes on our like website, and I know we're getting ready. We have minutes from 2020 meetings there, but wondering when we can. When a new website is going to be live, and or if we can post the minutes.
We're so
when
close.
they're-
Minutes will be posted there. We're very close. I'm hoping to hear any day now that we've launched, but
Okay.
I don't have a specific date.
Okay, great. So when we post, when minutes are distributed to board members, they'll also go up on the
When
website?
minutes are approved, a couple of days after that, they will go up on the website.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. And go ahead. Oh, microphone. The question was if they can make a check for the toy drive and who to make it out to.
We don't have a fiscal conduit yet. I have somebody in mind we will reach out to, and I will get back to you or anybody else on that.
Thank you. Jeremy?
I was just wondering, for the one we licensed that was pulled, was that by any chance the one that we actually disapproved?
No.
Oh, okay, so it's a different.
Moving on to new business. Sorry, old business. Does any board member have any old business? New business? Seeing or hearing none, moving on to public comment. Members of the public wish to speak on any item they so wish, they may do so now. So, and then after. If you can come up to use the microphone, please. Oh, that one, yeah, thank you. If you just give your name and address, please.
Hi, everybody. My name is Alyssa Haddad Chin. I work over at Target Margin Theater. We're on 52nd Street between 2nd and 3rd Avenues. I just wanted to let you all know that also I'm the company and community manager there. So I just want to let you all know that we have some exciting pop-up events for December, 2 of which are with our community partners. The first is our Young Artist Program, which is with Center for Family Life. Third and fifth graders over at PS1 have been creating their own and devising their own work that they're going to perform at PS1 and also at our theater. And it's called The Mysteries of Sunset Park. They put that together. Going to be very fun. Please come. And then the other community event is our December Fest, which is with in partnership with Raising Health. And we will be doing holiday fun, but also they'll be providing different health screenings that are free of charge. And their ESL students will be doing some performances in our space. So I have some flyers. Come through. It'll be a lot of fun. Thanks.
Thank you.
My name is Alexa Orr, and I work for the Brooklyn Public Library, not the Sunset Park branch. I hope you're not disappointed by that. We're very, very appreciative of your support and enthusiasm for today's opening. I am actually the branch manager of the Windsor Terrace branch of the library, which is still in Community District 7. So I just wanted to let you know that we have stuff going on. I have put the monthly calendar out there. We have weekly story times. We have a knitting circle that's growing. We have a board game library. You can check board games out with your library card. I don't know if you know that. It's a really cool program. And all the other regular library services that you're probably familiar with. We're much smaller, but we're there. We're there over on 150 East 5th Street in Fort Hamilton Parkway. And just saying hello and hope to see you there soon.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none, I would like to move to adjourn the November board meeting. So moved by Jerry, seconded by Cynthia. Any objection? None. Have a good night, evening. Have a good night, everyone.